Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So you picked the game this week.
Yes.
I'm familiar with it. I played a little bit of Driver San Francisco, which is like one of the real later ones, but I've only generally heard about this one for a specific reason we'll get into later. But what was your process in picking this?
It was mainly just, we try not to repeat genres over and over again from week to week. So I was going through and looking at the list. I had an idea for a game. We kind of talked about that, but I was kind of going to default to that one. But then I saw Driver in the list. I'm like, you know what? This is unique enough where it's a driving game, but it's not it is a driving game, but it's a weird driving game.
But it's not a racing game.
Yeah, it's not a racing game. It's action-y in a sense. So I thought it was different enough where we could, it doesn't really fit into any of the other genres we've done. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I only found this out today when doing the rundown, but this was developed by the same people that made Destruction Derby.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So like, you know, our second racing car game, whatever you want to call it, is the same developer as the first one we played.
Interesting, because I did have some comparisons to Destruction Derby while playing this game.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into more of it later, but the specific one that comes to mind is the way that the collision works and the way that stuff flies off the car. Like, you can really tell.
It felt familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on why.
I know, yeah. Once I read that, I'm like, this makes sense.
And the crash sounds, too, are very, very similar. So I'm like, that interesting. Maybe that's why I was like subconsciously thinking about Destruction Derby then.
Well, you know, one other point on that before we move on, the damage and how annoying it is very much the same as Destruction Derby, like exactly the same.
Yes and no, but we'll dig into that a little bit more in a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, this was a big part of my childhood too. I played this a lot. I'm pretty sure I beat this game as a kid. And then I played, I want to say Driver 2 and Driver 3 as well, but they all blend together, so I can't really tell you much about all those other games. I just know at some point you can exit your car in one of the later games.
So in Driver San Francisco, which I actually tried very recently while we were in the studio, because I had it downloaded, I've always heard it was really good.
Oh, okay.
The gimmick of that one is you can possess other people and take control of their car.
Oh.
So you're like driving around and then you zoom out and you can select any car and just control that car immediately.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever tried that one.
It's a cool idea. I didn't really I wasn't in the mood to play that kind of game, but when we were in the studio, I was just kind of, I had a lot of free time. So I'm trying all the games that I had downloaded that I never got to, just seeing if it was worth playing. And, one day I definitely will play it, but not right now.
Yeah, I completely get it.
But this week, I actually finally beat Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I played it a bunch in the studio, and then I didn't play it at all after we got home because I just didn't have time. And I looked and I was like, I'm only an hour from the end of the game. Yeah. And so one day I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to beat this because if I don't, I'm never going to.
Right.
I did, and I really genuinely love that game. This is one on the shorter end. Like, I think my total playtime is around 10 hours, which for those games is very short.
Oh, okay. Yeah, every time I've seen gameplay, I think I've watched you play a few times back when we were doing the other show, and I've seen other streamers playing those games. They always look fun and interesting. Like, there's always so much you can do, so many mini games within the games, and the story seems really compelling.
No, I love the batting cages mini game. I love the golf mini game. It's so fun.
It's just one of those games where it's absurd and it's serious, but it seems like it doesn't take itself too serious.
So the main story is very serious, and then everything else is just out of control.
Ah, okay. It's on my list of series to play, but as you said, they're so long of games that I just need to really dig down and find the time to play them.
Well, a couple of years ago, when number 7 came out, just called Yakuza Like a Dragon, I beat that one, and that one is like, I want to say I put 80 hours into it.
Oh.
And the new one that just came out, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, it is, I think, almost 100 hours if you want to do like almost everything. And in those games, I can't stop myself from doing everything. So I'm just not even going to start it because I just can't right now.
Yep. I mean, that's like with the Red Dead Redemption for me. The first one, and not even the second one. I want to beat the first one before I can play the second one. I've tried so many times to beat that game, but it just gets to the point where there's so long of gaps between how often I play that I forget what I was doing, where I was going, what was happening. So I have to restart over again. And I've done that like 3 times now.
That always happens to me with The Witcher. So like I've played like The Witcher 3, I've played 70 hours of that game, but I've never beaten it.
Oh, gee, yeah, yeah.
'Cause you just get so far into it and then it's like, okay, well, it's been 6 months, like I need to just start over. And then I just do the same thing again and then not beat it.
hmm And I love those games. Like, and that's why I feel like I would love Yakuza and all that stuff. It's just the amount of time that you need to dedicate to that one game is just always so long. But it's one of those things that I love and I hate about it at the same time.
Yeah. Typically any week I have a few hours to play a game that I really want to play, like a story game. And like a few hours a week, it's like I'm either going to commit to a game for a long time or I'm just not going to finish it. Like this week, I played a little bit of Lies of P because I want to get back into that. But like, I just got my ass kicked, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go back to it.
Which is interesting because you love those types of games anyways. So
I just have to like get good at it again because I'm like, I was like 10 hours into it, so it's like starting to get really hard.
oh yeah,
I don't know. It's tough because it's like we're playing games for the show, and like obviously that is fun most of the time, unless the game is bad. This week, I had a good time playing this game. You know, sometimes I got frustrated, but you know, we'll get into that later. So it's like I'm playing these games and like I don't really want to play other games because I already scratched that itch with this game for the show. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So most of the time, like I'll just, you know, watch a TV show or something. And I'm obviously always working on the band stuff and working on this. So it's like the little bit of time I have, I just spend watching something over starting another game.
That's true. Yeah, I find myself if I have any free time, I'll watch either YouTube or I'll watch a show or something just to pass a couple hours and then I move on with what I need to do.
Real quick, I've been watching this show called Tokyo Vice.
Oh, I never heard of that one.
It's on HBO Max. It's very Yakuza vibes, which is why I like it.
Oh, okay.
But it's just about a journalist in Tokyo, like an American, you know, that's investigating Yakuza and all kinds of stuff. And it's very, very good.
I'll have to add that to my list. I'm slowly making progress through my movies and TV show list, but then because it's so outdated and I'm trying to catch up, more stuff is being added to the list before I can even finish up the older stuff.
No, I feel that. I've been watching a lot of movies and stuff too, because like, you know, my girlfriend loves horror movies, so I'll Google like best this kind of horror movie, and then we'll just pick one and watch it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, not to go too off tangent, but I just recently watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I love that movie.
I was very confused for a very long time, but I was just impressed with the creativity in that movie and the editing.
It starts off very slow, and you're just like, I don't know, like what is this? And then once it hits that point, you're just like, let's go. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It is just like everyone always talked about that movie, and it's always been on my list. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna watch this movie finally, and I would watch it again. I absolutely love that movie.
I've also thought about watching it again at some point. I watched it maybe like a year ago, closer to when it came out. But yeah, I really loved it. But yeah, with that, let's just go ahead and hop into this game. Driver is an action driving game released on July 8th, 1999. Action driving was the genre on Wikipedia, so that kind of tracks with what you were saying earlier, where it's not quite a racing game, but you don't really know where to put it. I would say action driving makes sense.
Yeah.
It was developed by Reflections Interactive and published by GT Interactive. And Reflections Interactive, you know, later became Ubisoft Reflections. But yeah, like we said before, same developer as Destruction Derby. And, you know, makes a lot of sense. You can see it.
Yeah. Also very late in the PlayStation era as well.
Yeah, it's about like a year or two before the PS2 comes out.
Yeah. I think just to get the elephant out of the room, to address it right away, we need to talk about how this game starts.
Well, before we do that, I thought the intro was like bizarre and weird.
It really was. It's very lackluster, I guess is the best word to use it. Like, I don't know what their intentions were with that cinematic because it doesn't show off anything great about the game.
No, and it's not like it has like a great story or anything either. It's just like, okay.
Like the walk up to the car when he finally finds a car he wants to steal is like, we could have cut like 10 seconds off of the cinematic. We did not need this to go on for this long.
I will say I do like the 70s vibe to it. I think it gives it like a charm and atmosphere it wouldn't have without it, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has this. The best way I could describe it, I don't know if you would agree with this, is that it's kind of like GTA 3 before GTA 3 came out.
Yeah, kind of. I don't remember GTA 3 enough to agree or disagree, but
It just has that like GTA feel to it
oh yeah, yeah.
with like Vice City driving around in Miami.
Yeah, and this game has multiple cities, which I didn't realize until I got to the second one today.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 cities. And I think I read that there's a 5th city on a later released version or like a special release version. But it's not like an actual playable level. There's like an unfinished level that they kind of just threw in for you to have.
Oh yeah, that you can like kind of just go in there and mess around with or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just like the 70s vibe. I like the music. I like the general theming. It gives it like a flair, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has its own little personality to it. I think at the time we didn't really see too much within this style of game.
Exactly. But yeah, we can hop right into the tutorial then, which I've never had to look at a walkthrough for a tutorial before, so that's a first for me.
It's the weirdest decision I think I've ever seen in a video game, where for anyone who doesn't know, because I feel like this tutorial mission is pretty infamous in the gaming world, is you can't play the game until you beat this tutorial level. And I guess it kind of went with Invasion from Beyond too. Same way, you had to do the tutorial before you can get into the game.
This makes Invasion from Beyond look easy.
Oh, it really does. And what you do is you're given, first off, they don't tell you what you're doing. You just start in this level and you have a checklist of things you need to do. So whenever any new player who's never had to experience this before would be so confused as to what's happening.
I also feel like without looking at the manual or online somewhere, a lot of the controls are not explained very well.
What do you mean? With what?
Just like the handbrake and the way that you can spin and the way that all the things in this game work is not explained in the game.
No, I get that. And whenever I got this game as a kid, I want to say that beginning level was almost the reason I returned this game. Because as a kid, I almost couldn't beat it. It took me probably days of trying to finally get past that, to finally start playing the game I bought.
It's also like, what does some of the stuff on it even mean? Like, without knowing or without looking it up, I don't know what some of that stuff was supposed to be.
I still don't know what half of it means. So there was one that was, actually the one I really don't know what it means is the speed one.
I would just drive really fast as soon as I started and then hit the brake immediately so I can knock off the brake test and the speed.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I've tried like speeding as fast as possible and it wasn't giving me it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here?
I ended up taking about 20 minutes to beat this, which is crazy. And you'll see like in my capture, there's like 4 videos because I would play it for 5 minutes and then stop because I'm like, I am getting pissed. And like after a certain point, so I watched a YouTube video of someone doing it all and I'm like, okay, I know what all these things are. I know what I'm supposed to do. So I do it. And a lot of the time, a lot of it wouldn't trigger for me.
Yeah. Which one did you have trouble with at all?
The 180.
One normal 180 or reverse 180?
Normal 180.
Oh, that's interesting. So like you would do a 180 and it just would not trigger.
Yeah, it wouldn't trigger it. The reverse one I always got, actually.
See, that's the one I had trouble with. I did it once on my first attempt. And then every single time, I think there was actually one time I was only had to do the reverse 180. And I tried all like over and over again until time ran out. And I could not get my car to spin around. And if I did, it's like, nah, that didn't count. It's like, what are you talking about?
Same thing for me. Like I was trying to do the 180 at the end, running out of time. I'm like, please, don't make me do this again, please. You know?
It's like it's just so confusing of like it's more or less like a barrier to your game that you're purposely not letting people play your game until they get past this. At least if there's an explanation beforehand to say, hey, in order to be a driver, you need to prove yourself. Like you wasted all this time with the intro cinematic. Have another cinematic in there that leads into this mission or quote unquote mission.
There should just be a video of someone doing these things right before you do this. That way you know what you're supposed to do and what's like asked of you, because there's just no way to know.
Yeah. And it kind of reminded me of a SWAT. We did that video a long time ago for the other series, where with that one, you literally had to study and go to school before they let you play a game or a mission in that game. And it's like, this is exactly that.
Yeah, this is obviously not as extreme, but like maybe they should have did that because then it would have been a hell of a lot easier.
And it also makes me wonder because there is that, I think it's called the training option before you actually go to the undercover option. And one of the options is the parking garage. So I wonder if that is literally what the beginning mission thing is, and it shows you what you're supposed to do.
That would make sense and get rid of my complaints. But as anybody does, you just get into a new game and you start. And you think that the training is going to be in the game.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's very frustrating, and that alone made me hate this game all over again.
Well, dude, not even that. So like half the shit you have to do in that tutorial, you don't even have to do in the main game ever.
No, never, ever.
Like most of the main game is just driving place to place. Why does it matter if I can do a cool 360? I'm never going to do that in the game.
Mm-hmm. You're never going to do a slalom. You're never going to, brake check something. Like, if anything, like the key things of like can brake and maybe doing a lap around, like maybe not even hitting something, like keep it basic to teach you the controls more or less. But the complexity of it and the being generic, like with the speed and the brake test. What does brake test mean? Does that mean I have to like skid across with the brakes, or can I do a short distance? It's stuff you'll figure out after 5-6 attempts, but it's not explained right away.
How long was your final time on this, by the way?
11 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, but you got to take into consideration that the amount of probably hours I did as a kid to get past this level.
Yeah, you unlocked something in your brain.
Yeah. A lot of it I had to still figure out for the first time, but even on my first attempt, I came kind of close to beating it. It was just getting used to everything again. And it was just, once I started to get into that rhythm, I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm kind of doing, but still had to figure out a ton of this shit.
Yeah, and the controls really aren't bad either. They feel pretty good for the most part.
Yeah. Did you have the auto handbrake on?
Was it automatically on?
Yeah.
Then yes.
Oh, okay. It was weird. It's one of those things that when you let go of the gas to go around a turn, it will automatically kick on your handbrake.
Oh, yeah. I definitely did.
Okay. I started with that and then I turned it off. And then when I tried to go back to it, it just kept screwing me up after that. So I just kept it off the entire time.
I guess it would allow you for more control, huh?
A little bit. It just lets you pick when you want to slide. But your car handling sucks regardless of when you're trying to make a turn.
I mean, it genuinely feels like Destruction Derby when I think about it.
It really does. It's frustrating. I don't want to get into all this too much, but...
Well, okay. So let's go to the next thing. Right after that, you're just doing missions back to back. And I do think the little hub area thingy, like your room, I think that's pretty cool.
It is.
And how you take missions from listening to like messages on your machine and stuff.
One thing about that machine though, was it just me or did the machine sound like it was trying to seduce you the entire time?
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
I was like, why did you do this? Like, have the voice actor do that one more time and be like a little bit normal.
I did have some problems with the UI and the controls a little bit. Why do I have to use the thumbsticks in the menus?
In the menus?
Yeah.
You don't have to.
When I was playing, I had to use the thumbsticks in the menu, but then in the main game, I could only use the D-pad.
What?
Yeah.
So with mine, I could use the D-pad in the menus, but I could only use the thumbsticks while driving. And the directional pad didn't work at all for driving for me.
That is bizarre.
That is interesting.
I don't know if it was a setting in here that I like fucked up or something. Like, I don't know. But every other game we played, I've never had an issue like that. It's always set the same. It's set to the DualShock. And that's basically what I'm using.
It's weird because whenever you look at the controls, it clearly says, oh, use the D-pad for driving. Like, you can't do that. So there's times whenever I start a mission and I'm driving straight because that's me trying to push the buttons left and right to turn. And my car's not turning.
Yeah, that's weird. Using the D-pad for driving is good.
Yeah, I bet.
A few other little gripes that became very annoying. When you pause the game, you can't click a button to get out of it. You have to select to get out of the menu.
Yeah, that is true. I accidentally screwed that up a few times.
Well, you're just constantly pausing the game to look at the map.
Mm-hmm.
So like every time you're like, all right, let me go to the thing. You know what I mean? It's just most games, you push triangle or whatever to get out of it. And it's pretty simple. And in this one, with how much they expect you to check the map, it's very annoying.
And going off of that, and with your UI complaints, this goes back to the tutorial mission too. I hate how play again is at the very bottom. Why is that not option number 1? And on a lot of it, why is not show map option number 1 or 2 in the main game? because like you said, you're always in the map. They know you're going to always be in the map, but you have to go all the way to the bottom of the list every single time to reach those options.
It is obnoxious. And even on that, another one, whenever you save your game, every single time you save, you have to put in the name.
Yes. I wasn't sure if you were going to complain about that or not.
But why? It doesn't make any sense. You know my name. I put it in 5 times already.
I just kept changing random codes just because I didn't feel like constantly typing out.
Yeah, me too. I would just click a random symbol and then click yes.
I kind of get that too, where like maybe you can name the file that you want it to be. So when you come back later, you can say, oh, I have these 3 different files. Where was I at for each one?
Yeah, but with like a PS1 memory card, you don't have a lot of blocks. So like you're likely only going to have one save for this.
Yeah, that's very true. But the redundancy too, where you can save your game after a mission and then you go to the hub and they have the option to save your game.
Yeah, and they go right to that option every time too.
Yeah. Why are you duplicating that feature? And the one time I was like, okay, I don't need to save my game after the mission. I'll wait until I get back to the hub. Went to the next mission and it started me into the next mission without going back to my hub. I was like, what? Why is this all of a sudden skipping the hub section? It just doesn't tell you when it's going to do that.
It's just all these little things that add up to make it a little frustrating sometimes, especially when you're playing the same mission over and over again and you're like fighting the menu for no reason. It's just so dumb. It seems stupid to complain about these things, but when you play a game, because I played this game for almost 3 hours, it gets annoying quick.
Oh, it really does. There are nice little features they have in this, but these little features that it seems like they just didn't put a lot of time into really get frustrating and like hurt the game a lot. Like with the map, you have a dot where you're supposed to go and a giant black cone that you're supposed to follow. It works, I guess, but I'm so used to like the GPS systems we have now in games where it's like, was this too early? Like, was any other game doing this with a GPS system? I can't think of any, but
I don't know any off the top of my head, but like the fact that a lot of the time you just look at the map and you can't really tell where you're supposed to go. You have to like chart your path. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's quite literally like the olden days where you would look at that map, memorize, okay, at this turn I need to make a left and then I need to make a right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and that was every single mission. I'd plop up the map and I'd sit there, stare and be like, okay, I need to wait 5 rights and then make the 6th right. And then I need to turn left here. Like, what is this game doing to me where I'm like having to memorize an entire map to play this?
Yeah. Make a right at the weirdly thick road.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just hop into these missions because
Okay, yeah.
most of them are just driving place to place with a time limit, honestly.
Yeah. Much like Invasion from Beyond, they had 3 mission ideas and they tried to span that out across hours of gameplay.
For the most part, it didn't seem too repetitive. Like it is what it is, kind of. Like, I know it's the same thing over and over again, but like the story and the way they do it most of the time mixes it up enough. But I think after you do a few in a row that are too similar, you're like, all right, where's the next thing that's going to be mixed up? And then they do. So
yeah, like for the first one, you have to go to a bank to pick up people who just robbed it. I don't like how you get punished for getting there early.
Yeah, it's like you're here too early. Wait. And I'm like, okay.
And your felony bar shoots up if you're there too early.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I stopped in it and like it says, oh, too early, got to leave. And my felony bar was just cruising up to max because I was just parked out front of the bank.
That makes no sense.
It really doesn't. And it's another type of, like with the tutorial mission, it's like the game is punishing for no reason whatsoever. Or not even punishing, just generic. Like they don't go into enough detail about what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And like a lot of the time limits are just brutal.
Yeah, they give you just seconds to spare.
Well, my biggest problem with this gameplay, and I think you'll probably agree, is the fucking cops.
Yes. Yeah, it's
I only learned recently, today, that you can drive really slow past them and they won't go crazy.
Mm-hmm. As long as your felony bar isn't up.
But if you just go a tiny bit too fast, they just immediately are on you.
Yeah. The biggest problem for me is they spawn out of thin air in front of you for no reason.
Almost every single fucking time I'm about to finish the mission, I can see the marker, I'm making the turn, all of a sudden there's a cop there.
Yep.
And now it's like, you can't go here, lose the tail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I guess I'll just drive in circles for 10 minutes. Like, I don't know what you want.
And whenever you're in a mission where you have like 30 seconds left and then you get the cops on you, it's like, well, I'm just restarting the mission now because there's no way I'm losing these cops in 30 seconds.
It is weird. A lot of the missions, it doesn't matter if the cops are there too. So like, it seems like it would, but then it doesn't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not every mission stops you if you have a tail.
I didn't know that. Okay, well, that's good to know.
So I would just go for it. And then if it was like lose the tail, I would restart. But sometimes they just let you keep going. So I would just, whatever. A lot of the missions too, your damage carries over between parts of the mission.
Yep.
So like you're fighting with these cops, slamming into shit. You finally are like, all right, I did it. And then you go on to the next thing and your damage is so high, you're like, I might as well just restart this whole thing now.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said you made it to San Francisco. What was your, what level did you make it to?
The second level in San Francisco.
I guess that doesn't help me because one feature about this game is you get to pick which mission you do.
I would always just pick the first one that was available.
Oh, okay.
So I did the casino one where you have to go to the casino. And then the second one where I stopped, you have to meet this guy for a briefcase.
You got to go to the 3 different locations first and then meet him?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I made it to.
Oh, nice. So I stopped today because I finally beat it and got to the second half, but my damage was so high that I'm like, you know what? Whatever.
Yep, that was my quitting point too. I'm like, I'm not doing this all over again. I don't care. And then I quit.
The time limits are just so brutal and you can't afford to drive slowly past the cops because if you do that, you won't have enough time.
Yeah, it is really, you're fighting the time, but you also have to be a good a good driver on the road when you see a cop. So now you're wasting seconds when you're trying to get somewhere really fast. And it's kind of like they're trying to force your hand to just initiate a cop chase.
They absolutely are. Yeah.
It's just the strangest thing because then it goes to one of my biggest problems. And this could just be because I'm used to Grand Theft Auto where there's no getting rid of your felony.
Yeah. I didn't know why, or your damage for that matter.
Yep. Once you get it, you're stuck with it until you're done with the mission.
And if that felony bar is up even a little bit, every time a cop sees you, they're coming right for you.
Yeah, and by a little bit, it's like even if you have just the tiniest sliver of felony, the cops' cones on the map are bigger, and the instant you enter that cone, they chase you.
It is just insanely frustrating. And I got the most annoyed on the first level Miami, where you have to go down certain roads because there's only one path.
Yeah.
So there's nothing you can do. And it just becomes incredibly frustrating when they spawn a cop there because you're like, all right, well, I guess I'm just fucked now.
It's very strange. And I do want to say the Miami level is, in my opinion, very poor level design. I don't know if they're trying to be realistic with it, but you only have 3 roads that go, I want to say south, and they're just straight lines. So if you find yourself on that straight line and a cop just appears on you, you're done. There's nothing you can do about it.
Even with that, there's also those, a lot of the long stretches will have these just sharp turns for no reason other than to just catch you off guard, really.
But it made me laugh a little bit because I think it was in Watch Dogs. People always made the meme about the 90-degree railroad tracks. And in this game, it's just 90-degree roads everywhere. There's no bends or anything. It's just straight, harsh 90-degree turn.
I didn't notice that, but that's definitely true.
And can't really fault them. I'm sure there's limitations.
Even just to have these big open areas is cool because there's not a lot of games that did that around this time.
Exactly. Yeah. It was definitely a big step into the gaming world that they took this risk on.
And we're being pretty negative here, but I actually did have a good time playing this game, surprisingly. I kept wanting to try. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel on that aspect. I remember as a kid always being so annoyed of, I gotta wait for this light to turn green because there's a cop right behind me and I can't run the red light because I need to be good. It just feels like, going back to the Grand Theft Auto thing, is playing Grand Theft Auto, but the PG rated Grand Theft Auto where you still have to follow the laws. And there were fun times, but for me, I feel like the missions weren't unique enough to warrant constantly going.
Yeah. And you figure where we stopped, there's 4 different maps. Each of them has 10 levels. So we're only a little over a quarter of the way through the game and the missions are already so repetitive.
Yeah. It just what? You have to go to a place to pick up someone, go to a place to drop something off, or destroy another car.
But there was also a few where they mixed it up. Like there was the one where you have to destroy businesses around the city. There was the one where you have to follow a train.
What was the businesses? Oh, you might have just done a different one. I didn't do the businesses one.
You have to drive around town and destroy these restaurants, and you just drive into them, and then move on to the next one.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Like you're still right though. Like most of them are just drive here, drive here, drive here. You know what I mean?
But I do like the variety where they let you pick your mission. It's not like, oh, here's the next mission. It's like, what do you want to do next? Here's the description of what it is, and you get to choose.
Yeah, and I also didn't really care about the story or anything, so I would just pick the first mission that was available every time. Just keep going.
That makes sense. But with the train mission, now that you brought that up, it was so frustrating how you can lose the train. It's like you're on tracks. I should be allowed to just follow the tracks and I'm fine. But if the train gets too far away, it's like, oh, you failed because you lost it. I didn't lose it. I know where it's going.
With that one, I actually failed a few times in the very beginning because I couldn't catch up fast enough.
Exactly. Yeah. They purposely spawn cops right there. So once you get started, you're automatically going to get caught. And I kept losing the person too.
The spawning cops in is my biggest complaint by far. Just the cops in general, really. But like that whole system is just bad.
Yep. I want to say it's just the limitations again with the distance that they can spawn in vehicles.
Fair. You see how bad the draw distance is. So, well, real quick, I'll just say the graphics in this game fucking suck. They're not good.
The traffic system sucks.
Just like clearly it's, the limitations of the time. And, I'm not expecting some crazy open world, but if you're going to do that, you need to have some sort of trade-off where, you can actually see in front of you enough and the game doesn't slow down to a fucking crawl when there's like 5 cars on the screen.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're running from cops, especially when they have the barrier up and then there's like all these cars at once, the game feels like a slideshow.
Really? I don't think I ran into any issues on that.
The frame rate was dropping so low. I'm just like, come on, let me get away.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just something I wasn't paying attention to that much. I'll have to go back and check that out.
Well, I pay more attention to frame rate than you in general. So like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, just to get back to like the story and stuff, I just feel like it's just nothing. It's just, whatever.
Yeah. I guess we didn't really talk about that. The whole start of the story is you're an undercover cop who used to be a racer, and they want you to find someone and using your skills with the car to work your way through the gangs or whatnot to find the person they're after. But I agree that it's pretty much nothing. Nothing matters in this game.
You're just doing random stuff for random people. I'm sure it has like a meaning, like, you're working your way through it, but like, I don't remember any of the names of the characters. I don't remember specifics. Like, I know there's the one time you have to find that you get this killer who escaped prison or whatever. There's the one time where the guy you're working for gets killed by his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I have no attachment to these characters and I don't really care.
It's kind of like they have the story just for the sake of pushing the game forward, but it never ever means anything.
If they just had a few more memorable characters, I think it would have went a long way. But I just don't think that's where their focus was.
Oh no, not at all. Like I get you're trying to find people and you're trying to work your way up, but it just seems so flat, I want to say.
Yeah, it just feels like half-assed. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how to, like, for example, all those cutscenes where you're on the phone and it just freeze frames on your character.
Yes.
It's just like, what is the point of this? Like, I don't understand why you'd even do that.
There's a delay until they put the audio clip in of them talking on the phone.
I guess there wasn't cell phones super widely available yet, but like, could have just had that happen while you're in the car.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a good idea.
Almost every fucking mission in GTA, you're hearing about things while you're driving, and that makes it flow better.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just like standing there watching someone talk on the phone.
But even the dialogue and the way that the voice actors are, you can tell like it wasn't, like you said, not a lot of effort was put into that side of the game. It was more just putting it all into the actual graphics and how the game works. And it's a big game. It's a very ambitious game to go into.
I agree. And I didn't even look this up, but like, I wonder if this game got other ports at the time, because I bet you those versions are way better.
I want to say yes. I think it was on PC. I think I read that it was supposed to go to Nintendo, but they couldn't get the port to work, so it got canceled.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it only came out on PS1 and PC. I'm sure the PC version is better. I don't know about now, but at the time, it definitely was.
And Xbox too, right? I thought I read that.
I don't think so. That's probably one of the later ones you're thinking of.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, it didn't. But A lot of games around this time, especially the late PS1 games, would get like a Dreamcast port, and that would be the one to play because the Dreamcast was like just that step up from the PS1. So, like for example, Tony Hawk, even Expendable, like those games are all so much better on Dreamcast because that bump in power just gets rid of a lot of the issues, and they most of the time run super smoothly and are like 60 FPS, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of gone through all of my notes. I don't really have much more to say on this game. It's kind of just very middle of the road. Like, there's things I like about it. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. It just, I don't know that I feel that strongly about it to hate it or love it, you know?
Yeah. My biggest complaint is, I mean, we kind of briefly talked about the cops, but they can just spin on a dime around. I don't know if you've noticed that, where if they're coming the opposite direction of you, you think, oh, I'm going fast enough, I can just go. But they just like spin 180, no problem, and they're right up on you.
Yeah, no, they're like expert drivers.
Yeah. And then it's also frustrating how it seems like every car that isn't your car is just a little bit faster. Like the cops are just a little bit faster than you. When you're chasing someone to destroy their car, they're just a tiny bit faster than you.
The destroying the car part is very annoying because like you pretty much just have to get them early on and get enough damage that like only a little bit of a hit will get them, because if you wait, you're never going to catch them.
For me, I had the biggest problem catching them in the first place.
I think I only did one destroy the car mission, but what I did was you're looking at them and they drive past you to start the mission, so I would just gun it and get a good hit on them to start. That way I had a good bit of it out of the way early.
One trick I remembered from a kid was that if you hit their door, it adds extreme amount of damage to their car. So in the first one with the cop car that you're chasing, or I think they call it the armor car, I literally just went up beside him and just like tapped his front door real quick and it destroyed the car instantly because of it.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Out of the entire game, I think that's the one thing I remember from my childhood. But going back to the missions real quick, you were saying how like it doesn't really mean much. We were talking about how flat it is. You don't get money in this game.
Yeah, there's no upgrades or anything like that.
Yeah, you're not getting paid. There's no upgrading. You're not. It's just there's so many systems that I don't know where their focus was in this game, where you're like doing all these jobs for people, but for what? All you're doing is just working your way up, but you're not actually getting paid for any of this.
You know, it seems this company has a nice little track record with no unlocks, because I thought maybe you'd be able to upgrade your car, unlock anything, like do anything at all. But it seems like they're stuck to their guns on that.
They hate upgrades.
They said, here's your car, deal with it in every game they make, I guess.
Like, did you do the Superfly Drive mission?
I don't think so.
You get a new car briefly and you got to get that car somewhere else. And I thought, okay, cool. Like this is going to be, I'm in a new car. It's going to be awesome. And they talk about how fast it is. I didn't notice any difference in the speed. The only difference I noticed with the car, it barely even looks different from your normal car. And the biggest difference is you just get touched. Like I swear, like a gust of wind could put damage on your car. Like it's made out of paper. So there's so many times I was trying to get the car to this destination and a cop would just hit me and I'd be done. Mission over. And I had to start over again.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
But also to go more into it, like they have the countdown a lot, but there's also missions where the timer goes up.
Does that matter?
No, never. There's no point in the timer going up. Why have a timer at that point?
Yeah, it's not like they grade you or give you a rank or anything. So like, why does it matter?
If there was a money system, I could see that playing into it. But there's not. So why do you have it? In the casino mission, the first time I was like flying and I was like going really fast and whatnot, I ended up dying because the cops just kept hitting me. Which also brings me to the point of the GPS is never super, super accurate. You always, it's like, here's the location you need to be, but you don't know exactly where you need to be in that location. So for the casino one, you have to go into that compound and then go behind the houses to get to the point.
I do remember that, and it was so weird and annoying.
So the second time, I pick up the people and I realized, oh, they just robbed the casino, but I don't have a felony. I took my time. I drove the speed limit. I stopped at red lights. I'd kind of speed up, but if a cop came, I'd slow it down. And it took me, I want to say like maybe 5-6 minutes to get to the location. But there's no penalty for being a good driver and just following the laws on the road in that situation.
Hey, I mean, I didn't even think of that, but that's a really good idea. Because like that would, I mean, it'd be slow, but at least it's not annoying and you're not dealing with the cops constantly.
But it's also boring. Like, who wants to play a video game to follow the laws on the road?
No, I hear you. It's a trade-off. It's like, do you want to be annoyed by the cops or do you want to drive really slow?
That's why I wish they had a button where you could just push it and you go like a cruising speed of like the actual speed limit.
That would be a good idea.
Because the amount of times I'm just going like, roar, 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 and like just having the gas and my car's bouncing, like trying to like kick it up into gear. That or like a speedometer. If they had a speedometer, like don't go over 50, you would know where to be.
If they had a speedometer and like the speed limit or something.
Yeah.
Like if they want to do that, they should have accounted for that.
Exactly. And like you said, the amount of times I thought I was going at decent speed and the cop's like, nope, that's too fast. Now we're going to chase you. I'm like, I feel like I was going at a normal speed here.
Well, all the other cars in the game go so fucking slow. So like if you drove that speed, you would never do anything.
Nope. But last, because you said you're out of your things, is they have mini games. I don't know if you played them at all.
No, I didn't.
So there's 5 mini games. One is you're getting chased by a cop, and you gotta see how fast you can get away. The other one, you're chasing a car to destroy it. Then you have one where you have to go pick up checkpoints, see how fast you can pick up the checkpoints. You have another one where you have to pick up checkpoints, but time is going down at that point, and you got to see how many how many checkpoints you can get before time runs out. And the last one is yet another cop escape one, but they have 10 cops that can go faster than you. They can't die, and they are just relentless, and it's just to see how long you can survive. And like you said, all these mini games are just the main game I played.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, if you want to do that stuff, just play the game.
But lastly, I did like the free drive. I don't know if you did that at all.
I didn't know.
It's just like the normal gameplay where you have to be good around cops or they're going to chase you. But it gives you that sense of exploring in a sense. Like in San Francisco, I purposely went to take a drive and I went to the Golden Gate Bridge, which I thought was very cool. And also I thought there was a secret over there. But I realized that I was thinking about a later driver game where there's a secret near the Golden Gate Bridge. But then they, like, at least for me, San Francisco was a better level. And you can go to like Presidio, and there's like the statue or Coliseum type thing there for display, and like more environmental stuff, where Miami was just nothing and flat and poor level design. I feel like San Francisco stepped it up a lot.
No, I definitely agree. San Francisco's way better. I just never saw a need to do the free drive because there's nothing to find. Like, yeah, the landmarks are cool, but like, there's not collectibles. There's nothing hidden anywhere. It's like, I don't really care.
That's true.
But if you just want a chill experience, exploring around, just getting used to the game, learning the map, that's totally what you could use that for.
Yeah. And it also, like, some positives too, is in San Francisco. I found a parking garage. That parking garage would be good if you're getting chased by cops. You can run in there and hide, probably.
That's cool. I didn't find that.
Yeah, it's just little things like that where I felt like it's still annoying that you still have to follow all the rules and you have to be good. But it is nice to find little tiny things that could help you later on in missions that you might not know about.
All right, so before we get to our scores, let's take a look at a couple reviews and see how the game did at the time. The scores for this game were very positive, generally 7 to 9s in that range. So GameSpot gave it a 7.7 out of 10. And they said, the gravity in the game seems a bit on the light side, making the game's crashes and jumps feel a little more dramatic, as they were in Demolition Derby. Some people might not like the game's exaggerated physics, but I thought they made it a bit more fun.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about is if you get your car flipped, you're done. You can't flip your car back.
It only happened to me once, but I was like, come on.
Yep, same here. But I kind of get that. There was times in San Francisco where I went off of a hill and I just felt like it was really hard to keep control of my car after that.
Yeah, the physics are a little weird. I wouldn't put a knock against the game for this, but at the same time, like, it's definitely worth mentioning at the very least.
Yeah, I see where they're coming from.
So Game Informer gave it an 8.25 out of 10, and here's what one reviewer had to say. Driver brings up a lot of questions as you play it. Why am I forced to take specific paths in these open environments? Why is it all right for Tanner to deliver hitmen, but not hit pedestrian? Why do all my missions happen at night while it's raining? I
honestly completely forgot that Tanner was his name.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, did you try hitting any pedestrians?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And, you can't hit them.
Nope, they just run right out of the way.
It kind of reminds me of this game I played as a kid. I don't know if you ever played it. It was for PC. It was called Midtown Madness.
That sounds familiar. Or do you mean Midnight Mad or
No, you're thinking of Midnight Club.
Midnight Club? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Midtown Madness was a PC game by Microsoft, and you just drove around like Chicago for one of them and other maps, and you could not hit a person no matter how hard you tried. And as a kid, trust me, I tried. They would either like slam up against the wall or dive out of the way, and that's what this game does pretty much.
Yeah. And I think this enforces the comment I made at the top of the show that this is just a PG rated Grand Theft Auto where you can't do, you're technically doing bad stuff, but not really. Like,
I mean, like, as this guy said, you're delivering hitmen, but you can't, hit a person in the street, I guess. That's too far.
it's like you're not the one doing these actions of the bad stuff. Other people are. You're just driving them to the location.
Yeah, you're just an undercover cop. You're not doing anything. You didn't rob the bank. You just helped them escape.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, those are all valid points. I did think the driving at night was cool, but in the way that the lights would kind of move with you was, a nice touch. But
It adds a little bit of variety to an already boring level whenever you have already done like 5 missions in it. It changes it up a little bit.
yeah, but it's not enough to make it feel fresh. It's just like for that first mission that it's night, you're like, okay, cool. And then after that, you're like, whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, that brings us to our scores. And, I thought I knew where I was going to place this. And then our conversation was kind of mostly negative. So originally I was going to do 6.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I looked and that's what I gave Destruction Derby. So I'm like, I feel, this game is honestly a little bit better than Destruction Derby. But in hindsight, I feel like I should have given Destruction Derby a little bit lower of a score, maybe.
I keep thinking about that too, of how, yeah, that should have probably been a little bit lower.
I think that's how we're always going to feel about some of the earlier games because we hadn't figured out kind of how we're going to rate things yet. So, but I think after this conversation, like I like this game. I do. I don't know that I'd ever play the whole thing, but like my time with it, I enjoyed, even though there's a lot of frustrating things about it. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with a 6.
Interesting. I was not expecting you to be that high. And I do agree where I was comparing this to Destruction Derby as well. But I kind of feel like Destruction Derby was a better game in the sense that it was more complete in a sense of they had an idea of what they were doing and they stuck with that idea.
They know what it is.
Yeah. Whereas with this, it's like they have the idea, but it feels like nothing is ever executed well. It's just like, it's the generic idea that they never completed for the game.
Yeah, I mean, this has potential, and I'm sure the sequels are better, but, they didn't go all the way with it like they could have.
Exactly. And I mean, I made this comparison a lot throughout this of Invasion from Beyond, where they use up all their creativity almost immediately, and it never gets elaborated on. But as you said, you played a level that I didn't get to play. And there are little things that I do like picking a mission and you're never really doing the same thing over and over again. You get to choose what you want to do. My original ranking going into this was either a 4.5 or a 5. And nothing has really changed my mind all too much about it. So I do think I was going to go on the higher end, match Invasion from Beyond and stick with a 5 on that.
That's crazy. I didn't think you were going to go that low. I mean, this was your pick. This is a game you played as a kid. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is, a game that could have been fun as a kid, you come back to as an adult and you're like, wow, what did I see in this game?
Yeah, no, that's true.
I mean, specifically, I remember my friends and we were doing the cop one when the cops are like superheroes chasing you down. And we would be up late at night laughing our ass off at like some of the funny situations you can get yourself in. And like we were competing to see how long we could last. Like stuff like that was fun as a kid, but nowadays is like, that's not going to hold your attention for more than a minute.
No, not at all. So that will put that at what, a 5.5.
Yep.
And it will be directly below Destruction Derby.
Which is fitting. I do think that was a better game from them.
I go back and forth on it because, they took more shots with this game, but I do agree with you in that Destruction Derby is a more complete, well thought out experience. It knows what it is and it does that well, even though it's missing a lot of the extra things. But this game doesn't have those extra things either. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't argue for either of them being better. They kind of almost sit at equal footing for me.
Yeah. It is kind of one of those things where you have to think about no one was doing this style game at this time. So later on, we see Grand Theft Auto come out. Who is to say that maybe they played this game and they got inspired because of this to make a game similar?
That's true. I mean, I'm pretty sure the original GTAs came out before this.
The original, but I mean when they went to 3D.
Yeah, exactly. When they were going to 3D, they're looking at this for how missions could work, because a lot of missions in GTA are like these missions.
Exactly. It's a very parallel between the two games. So yeah, it's not very high on the list. I feel like it's middle of the road, but I do think they did innovate a lot, what other companies weren't doing at the time.
I can agree with that. All right, well, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.